Welcome back and hello if you're new. So, Coheed and Cambria have never been a band to do things by halves, and their brand new album, The Unheavenly Creatures, could well be their most ambitious to date. With one foot firmly in emo songwriting and the other very much in the spheres of prog, the band have often shared some fairly confusing qualities that surely shouldn't work. Yet due to their fantastic songwriting ability, have combined both this emo style and this prog idea together, resulting in an incredibly unique and very much identifiable sound. The Unheavenly Creatures is the first in a 5-part series which is set in the world of Vaxis, following two lovers, Nostrand or Creature, and Nia, or Sister Spider, adding in a third character, Colossus, who has kept these star-crossed lovers apart. And the record begins on a planet called the Dark Sentencer, and if you want to find out more, you'll have to give the album a listen. So join me as I look at Coheed and Cambria's brand new album, The Unheavenly Creatures. For those who may be familiar with Coheed and Cambria, you'll know that their love of sci-fi has always been a strong point in the band. However, this time the band wanted to fully envelop themselves in the conceptual world. Opting for a different approach, Coheed and Cambria instead created the story before the music. It's a fantastic process, and one that, following the opening of Prologue into the Dark Sentencer, immediately envelops you into this world of Vaxis, with a fantastic progressive rock setting that is the just shy of 8-minute Dark Sentencer. And weirdly enough, this idea kind of is carried on throughout the entirety of the record, and for example, The Unheavenly Creatures as a title track has this odd sense of nostalgia to it, as though, you know, we're looking through these star-crossed lovers' memories type thing.
She fell to me. We escaped through the alley in the back.
And the inclusion of those electronics really create this quite vulnerable and sweet sense to it. However, the band also do understand when to let each instrument speak for themselves. For example, the piano introduction on Queen of the Dark, where again the band bring things back a bit, let there be a bit of space and a bit of time for the listener to breathe, because you got to remember this is 15 tracks long, it's a long album. But there's also the more kind of rock oriented tracks such as True Ugly, which are also brought into the mix to kind of keep the energy levels up. Throughout The Unheavenly Creatures there is a terrific sense of narrative in the album. Not only do the band overall reflect what's going on, but musically remain in the context of the story. Meaning that if you're not a huge listener to the lyrics, you'll still be able to figure out roughly what's going on just by listening to the music. For example, the more somber tones of Black Sunday, you know, kind of signal maybe something quite big is happening. Yet just as much as the album is a progressive tour de force, you would also be able to listen to the tracks individually, given their immediacy. And Nighttime Walkers, for example, later on the album, recalls this idea that we've heard on Toys, and has almost like an 80s sci-fi theme. Imagine sort of Stranger Things in space. The track also features vocoder style vocals, which make it slightly hard to understand what Sanchez is saying, but adds to this element of theatricality throughout the album. And, you know, later on in the album, right near the end, Old Flames has maybe more of a sense of like an emo sensibility to it, but most importantly has that sense of resolve, and we're coming to the end of the album. One element that I've definitely appreciated throughout the album are these kind of Easter eggs of melody, which, again, you know, follow this narrative and guide the listener through the listening experience. For example, as I mentioned Old Flames, the final section of Old Flames reprises that initial piano introduction that we first heard on the Dark Sentencer. Also, another thing, if you're a sci-fi fan, you might get this, but it really reminded me of that beautiful Cloud Atlas piece. And I think that speaks for itself in the way that the band have actually really created something that's an incredibly memorable melody, and that will definitely follow you around long after you finish the album, but also is the album's overall sound, if you know what I mean. Although there may be a serious amount of lofty ideas present here, Coheed and Cambria, first and foremost, can write brilliant choruses. And you know, it's evidenced on the title track Unheavenly Creatures. However, I personally think that the album is just a little bit too long. For example, the track Lucky Stars, it sounds almost as though it's kind of like a credits roll, and I don't know if that's what they wanted, but I feel that the energy that was on Old Flames really ends on a high note, and then this sort of Lucky Stars thing is just kind of tacked on at the end, and it didn't necessarily need it. Otherwise, the tracks are all really well thought out, well put together, you know, they work cohesively, but there was just some elements where I was like, you didn't really need that. Overall, the record is a fantastic example of Coheed's brilliant songwriting and their conceptual ideas. If perhaps it might have been a little bit shorter, it probably would have worked in its favour, but overall, Coheed and Cambria have created a fantastic, enthralling and visceral prog rock come emo album. And that's why I'm giving the Unheavenly Creatures a 4 out of 5. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure to turn my notification bell on so that you know when I upload. You can also check out my Apocalyptic Anniversary series over on Metal Sucks. Drop a comment, let me know what you think of the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for another review. Alright, take care.